We've seen the crumbling of the family. The family unit's been crumbling for decades now, and a lot of it started with sending our jobs overseas, ending manufacturing, shutting down factories. Dad lost his job. Dad's depressed. The family unit struggles. They're financially struggling. Sometimes resorted to crime or getting involved in behavior that wasn't appropriate, or a divorce ensued. And we've been seeing this for decades, and it hurts the family structure. We just came from Budapest, Hungary, where CPAC was going on, and I was blessed to speak over there. I've never been in a city that was more clean, safe. The children are running around. What they did about 10 years ago is they started to say, we're going to strengthen the family unit. We're going to encourage people to get married. We're going to encourage people to have children. And we're going to, instead of giving people tax breaks and welfare for sitting home, we're going to give you tax breaks if you get married. How about a tax break when you get married? And when I think they have a 16% flat tax. When you have your first child, we bring that down a percentage. When you have your second, it goes down 2 more percent. And if you're a mother who has 4 children, what they do there is they say, you will never pay taxes again. You're tax exempt.
That's amazing.
We give a lot of tax exempt. We give tax breaks to corporations.
Yeah.
Same corporations pushing a lot of these crazy social issues on us. But we never considered to give maybe a tax break for somebody who decides to do the right thing, to work, start a family, raise a family. What about giving them a tax break? And it's working in the city. It's so beautiful. You go there. First thing I saw was moms holding babies. I was in New York. I only saw about 3 or 4 kids in the 3 days I was there. There aren't many kids in New York City.
And you know what you see in LA?
What?
The mom is standing 10 feet behind the caretaker who's pushing the baby cart. So they hire people to raise their kids for them and things like that.
What I see often is I see a little cart being pushed around, and I go, oh, I can't wait to see the baby. I peek in, and it's a dog.
I was going to say that.
I see that a lot. Actually, more often than not, I look into a stroller and I see a dog. I go, oh, I love dogs. Don't get me wrong. I have a dog myself.
Yep.
But it's, having children, and I've told you this, Tim, I want you to be a dad someday. I hope you will.
Working on it.
You're working on it? Okay,
Yeah.
good. It's really the greatest gift. It is the greatest gift that God gives us. And I really encourage people. It changes your entire life perspective. And we need to encourage that. It's so hard right now with the economic situation that Joe Biden has left us in. I know people your age who go, kids, I don't even think I'm going to be able to afford an apartment. Definitely not a house. How can I even afford to go on a date, let alone get married?
I think it's on purpose.
Yeah, it's the crumbling, and they want us lonely and
Dependent.
divided, dependent.
Yeah, so this is the challenge, right? We talk about Hungary, and they did this great tax incentive program where you don't pay any taxes if you have, 4 kids or something like that?
The mother is, yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And they also give tax breaks to grandparents who decide that they want to go and help take care of the babies, their grandbabies. It's really a beautiful thing. Of course, it probably people would have their heads exploding here if we talked about that. But we need to start encouraging strengthening families, because so many of our societal ills come from the fact that the family has been weakened.
Well, so this is the challenge I see. It feels like we are in a great cultural war in this country where you have 2 factions. Within those factions, you have different factions. But what the left or the media would describe as right wing is actually relatively broad. Someone like me who's traditionally liberal can sit down with a conservative and be like, yeah, family strengthen the country. You look at the data on politics. Liberals and conservatives used to be they would overlap about 80% of political issues. That whole group now is called right wing. And the left I view as a chaotic and destructive force that is illogical and dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
For example, Ocasio-Cortez is blaming Daniel Penny, who is the victim of violent crime. She's blaming him for the death of this man who was actually the aggressor. When you have politicians who seek to implement an inverted policy, blaming victims and destroying this country, how can we implement a policy such as tax incentives for mothers who have more kids when you're actively fighting against someone who's trying to destroy the system, destroy the country?
It's tough. I mean, and this is why I think we need to really work on things like my court case, which I won't get into all the details, because we want to make sure that when we do go and cast a vote, that it's being done fairly. So I'm going to leave it at that because I know the format
Oh, but
that
there's
we
so
are
much
of
to
the
be
show,
said.
and it's really important, and that's why I'm continuing to fight for that, because we have
It's
to have that in order to secure our country. But I think we can work together on this. I would hope that AOC cares enough about the families in her district. She's representing families that we could say we want to support them. So many women are making decision to do something like have an abortion, and because they're afraid they don't have the money for the baby, they can't afford their own living expenses, let alone feeding another baby or feeding a baby and raising a baby. And so in Hungary, this is amazing. They didn't change the abortion laws, but they cut the number of abortions in half because they actually started supporting families. I
I mean
think
that's
think about that. They didn't touch the abortion. If we didn't touch abortion, we didn't touch any of the laws. And we brought down abortions by half because we actually said, what is it that's making you want to make that choice? And how can we help? We want to make sure that we have healthy families. And liberals live in families too. Ocasio-Cortez came from a family. I would certainly hope that she thinks it's important to have strong families. I don't think it's a left or a liberal, conservative, right wing thing. But again, you have to be willing when you're making a case like that to stand up and take the heat. Viktor Orban, the prime minister, has been called every single name in the book. They call him a fascist, they call him a Nazi, you name it. And you hear that and you think, oh my gosh, if I go to Hungary, it's going to be terrible. It was the most delightful place I've ever been. I loved it. And I had a chance to talk with him for close to an hour. We talked about policy, how he brought people together to implement these policies. He recognized we have to strengthen the family. The left is pushing right now anti-family. They're pushing to take parents' rights away. They're pushing to have children doing gender modification. I don't even know what they call it anymore. To change their gender and have
child
surgery.
sex change.
Child
They don't
sex
call it that. They
changes.
call it affirming, but I just
Child sex change, gender mutilation. They're pushing that behind the parents' back. That is weakening the family. That's weakening the human being, the individual.
well see this is an interesting subject too because the right says mutilation, right? It's a very very strong way to phrase it. The left says gender affirming care. I decided when it comes to the issue of abortion, when it comes to the issue of child sex changes, I'm going to use a basic fact-based academic term. But the funny thing is, the left loses it when I do that. They get mad. I'm calling it mutilation is very strong. And I can
That's
understand
what
why
it
people
is.
would be offended by it. That's the terms that the right and conservatives use. So I said, okay, I'll meet you halfway. We'll just call it a child sex change operation or medical intervention. And they say, no, how dare you call it that? That's crass or crude. I'm like, it's the academic term
I
for
don't
what it
know. I
is.
don't think that mutilation is harsh. I think that's what they're doing. They're taking part of your body there's nothing wrong with, and they are mutilating it. And this should be a crime to have
Yeah,
this happen.
in
You know,
Florida, it is.
the urological system is pretty advanced, okay? This is nature's plumbing. And to go in there and mess with that, you're setting up an individual for a lifetime of health problems.
Yep.
And guess what? When there's a lifetime of health problems, there's a lot of money in that. There's a lot of money in this industry.
Abortion is the same thing. Conservatives say pro-life. The left says pro-choice. Now, I really reject this one. I think you're either pro-abortion or anti-abortion.
We should that's actually how when I was a journalist I learned how you're supposed to address the issue. The issue is abortion.
Right.
And the left is almost diabolically brilliant in the way they use and twist language. And the right seems to go along with it and go, okay, all right, well, if you're pro-choice, we'll be pro-life. The issue is abortion.
Right. The right
And
does do this.
and there really is no choice. As I always say, frightened young woman goes into a clinic, an abortion clinic. There is no choice. They're given one choice. They don't sit that person down and say, hey, why are you choosing this? Is there something we can do to help? Is it financial? Because we can look to get you some financial help. Is it the fact that you don't think you can take care of the baby? We can help you find more information about adoption services and families who would love to raise your child. What is it that's causing you to want this abortion? That would be choice, right? Because you're giving an array of choices,
Yeah.
but there is no choice. And what happens is the young lady oftentimes gets the abortion, and maybe initially says, okay, well, I guess I don't have to worry now. But months or years down the line is left with a wound that never heals, a regret that never heals. And oftentimes, many are left unable to bear children. I know several people who had an abortion and can never bear children again. Something happened in the process. Conversely, ask a mother who had a child unexpectedly, carried the baby, had the baby. Ask any mother on planet Earth, do you regret having your baby? I would challenge you to find one. I bet you can't find a single one who regrets that.
I'll be a bit pedantic.
No matter how weird or bad
some
their kid turned out. There's some bad kid.
No, but there's some evil people out in the world, but they're the exception, not the rule. Typically, I know many women who got pregnant, some of my good friends today, and their kids are, 9 or 10 years old, and they tell me they were scared and unsure, and the doctor said abortion's always an option, and they didn't know what to do. I have one friend who was told, you are not medically capable of doing this, and it could cause you could die. And
Whoa.
ask them now, would you have preferred to have gotten an abortion? And they say, how dare you? Because they have a kid who's 9 years old. Are you nuts? They love their kids.
Yeah, no mother ever has the regret that she had a baby. I've never met one, at least. Maybe there's one out there, but conversely, you ask people who've had an abortion and you have a
lot.
lifetime of regret that you can't make it better.